The state calls Laurel Henry to the stand. Mrs. Henry, do you remember an incident that occurred last December in Harlem?
Yes. My granddaughter had a cold. I went into the drugstore to get her some medicine. I heard people arguing. I don't know what it was about. Mr. Nesbitt, the store owner, came over to see what the argument was about. Then I heard one of the men involved ask where the money was.
And what did you see during this time?
I saw two men engaged in an argument. And then I saw one of them grab the drugstore owner by the collar. I left the store as soon as possible.
Do you recognize anyone sitting in the courtroom today from the day of the robbery?
The gentleman sitting over there was one of the men arguing.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Mrs. Henry, did you see some photos of Mr. Nesbitt?
Yes, I did. At the police station.
And the police showed you these pictures for your cooperation in looking for the killer. Is that correct?
Yes.
And while you were looking over these pictures, were there any moments of hesitation? Any moments where you weren't quite sure, or didn't recognize Mr. King when you saw his picture?
I didn't recognize him at first, but then I did. The pictures looked different.
Do you remember who asked Mr. Nesbitt where the money was?
I do not.
Thank you. Nothing further.
No questions, Your Honor.
Bobo Evans, Your Honor. How long have you known the two men sitting at these tables?
I've known King my whole life. The other guy I just met a few days before the robbery.
Have you been arrested before?
Yes, I've been arrested for breaking and entering, grand theft auto, for taking a car radio, and for fighting a guy that died.
So the arrest for fighting a guy was manslaughter, isn't that right?
Yeah, I got 3 years.
Can you tell me what happened on the 22nd of December last year?
Me and James planned on hitting a drugstore, and we did it. We went over to the place and sat down on a car outside. Then we got the sign from him.
Let the record show that Mr. Evans is pointing towards Mr. Harmon. Go on.
Objection.
Sustained. Is he identified him or not?
Can you identify the man that gave you the sign that the coast was clear?
Yeah, that's him. Sitting next to the woman with the red hair. Anyway, so we got the sign that everything was clear. James took a hit on some drugs we had, and then we went in. We started some beef with the dude behind the counter. He came up with a gun and started shouting and stuff. King was trying to get the gun from him and I was going for the money. Then I heard the gun go off. I looked over and saw the guy falling down and King was holding the gun. That was it.
What else did you take besides the money?
We took some cigarettes and left.
Then what did you do?
We went to the chicken place on Lenox Avenue. We got some fried chicken and some wedges and some sodas. It was just me and James.
What happened to the money that you got from the robbery?
Like I said, we spent some of it on food, and then me and James split the rest.
And you definitely saw Mr. Harmon coming from the drugstore, as planned.
Right.
Are you telling the truth today?
Yeah.
Nothing further.
Mr. Evans, you admit that you were in the drugstore committing a felony where a man got killed, is that correct?
Yeah.
The penalty for felony murder is 25 to life without parole. So if you ever want to walk the streets again, you better find somebody to take the weight. Is that correct?
What are you saying? Am I trying to cop a plea? I just told you I was trying to cop.
So after you killed Mr. Nesbitt,
I didn't kill him.
You've admitted to a lot of things, but now you blame someone else for the killing to get a break for yourself, isn't that right?
I think James was high, or he wouldn't have shot the dude. He's the cause of me being in this mess.
You didn't want to do the stick-up.
Man, later for you.
Nothing further.
When did you have a conversation with Mr. Harmon about this robbery?
I never did. He's just King's friend.
You testified that you did not have a gun when you entered the drugstore. Is that correct?
Right.
How do you know now that the gun that was used in the drugstore was not brought in by whoever you were with?
Because James said that he didn't have no gun.
So you're relying pretty much on what you've been told about the robbery. Is that correct?
Right. Except for what I've seen.
Did you ever talk to Osvaldo?
I have said a few words to him.
But he
wanted in.
testified that the only reason he was involved in this stick-up was because he was afraid of you.
I wouldn't bring anyone into a serious situation unless they wanted to be there, because you can't rely on somebody who doesn't want to be there.
How about the money? Weren't you supposed to split up the money with Osvaldo and Harmon after the robbery?
After me and James found out that the guy was dead, we decided to stay low.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Just before the robbery, what were you and James doing?
Waiting for Steve to come out.
Let the record show that both Bo was referring to Harmon. Thank you. Nothing further.
But you had not spoken to Steve Harmon prior to or after the stick-up? And you didn't split any money with him?
Nah.
Nothing further.
I'll take motions this afternoon after lunch. The defense can start its case the first thing in the morning. We'll adjourn and give the jury the rest of the day unless anyone has any objections.